Hey everybody, and welcome back to #Korb Stat Chat. I hope that you've been enjoying these videos as much as I have. Probably not. But again, hopefully you're getting some use out of these. If you forget a concept, you can always come back to here. We're going to be progressively going throughout the semester talking about certain things. And if I find a concept that we're really struggling on, I want to put out a video so that we can understand it a little bit more. So in the last video, we talked about qualitative versus quantitative data. And the lesson before that, we talked about population and sample space. So within our sample, we have individuals, and then we have variables of those individuals, and those variables split into qualitative and quantitative variables. So of those qualitative and quantitative variables, I can level those measurements accordingly. So right now, what we have is, as a recap, we have qualitative data being nominal and ordinal, and then we have quantitative data being interval and ratio. Now our job here is to figure out what kind of measurement we're dealing with here and which category or what level it can go into. Now when you're given a situation, it's kind of hard because a lot of these can be answers to the same question, depending on how you're asking it or depending on what type of question is being answered. So qualitative and quantitative data, I want to rethink this process. So instead of thinking of these as four separate things, let's say, I know it's crazy, let's get rid of these lines, turn this, and view it a little bit differently. Let's think of this as a layer of a pyramid, right? So each one is tied to one another, but as we go progressively up, we're shrinking the category, trying to get a more concise answer. So this is how we can think about it differently. So nominal being the base layer, where we can categorize things. Then if you can categorize and order those things, then it's going to be ordinal. If we can categorize, organize, and then take differences between numbers, like time and like temperature, then we get an interval layer. But if we can take ratios, where we can multiply and divide to relate the data back to us, we can call that a ratio level. So think of this as a continuum going up to the top. We're starting on the nominal layer, checking to see if it is, yes. If it's nominal and it's ordinal, then the highest level of measurement is going to be ordinal. Now I'm going to go to a screencast where I explain this a little bit more, and then we're going to talk about a couple examples. So let's hop over to the screencast and get going.
All right, so let's determine the level of measurement. To do this, again, we got to think of the levels of measurement as a pyramid, not individual structures, right? So we're starting off on the base layer. This is the nominal layer. We can put things into categories. And remember, the nominal layer, we can also subcategorize this as well. We can talk about dichotomous and binary things like yes and no, true and false. These things where it's either one or the other. They're two specific categories. Or we can have multiple categories. We can have ethnicity. We can talk about skin color. We can talk about hair color. Those things that we can put into different categories is going to be nominal layer. So we can put data into categories. Now let's build upon that and go to our next level or layer. We can order the data from smallest to largest, worst to best, or just in general, data values can be compared. So we're not only just putting things in different categories, we can order these categories from smallest to largest, or any other way that we can order things, right? So we have the nominal layer, just categories. Okay, ordinal layer, we have categories, but they can be ordered. Now let's go into interval, our next layer. We can order the data, and then we can also take differences between values. If we're talking about hair color or ethnicity, we can't really order those things, and we definitely can't assign values to those things, so we can't take differences. But an interval would be like temperature, right? Or time. Those things that we can take differences between, those are going to be at the interval level. Now you may be thinking, okay, well I can talk about age as well, right? But age, I can do a couple other things with that as well. And that comes to a ratio. So we can order the data, we can then take differences, but then we can also find ratios between data values. So we can use division to find a ratio between two different values on our data set, right? So we have nominal layer, we have ordinal, interval, and then ratio at the very top. Again, the difference between interval and ratio, intervals we can just take differences. We can't do any more with it. But ratios, we can take differences and we can find ratios between two data values. All right. So hopefully this makes a little bit more sense. And when you're determining the level of measurement, you're trying to find the highest level that you can justify. Okay, so to find the level of measurement, state the highest level that can be justified for the entire data collection. think about the calculations that must be made. So if we're talking about age, or we're talking about height and weight, we can find ratios between those different data values, right? So determining the level of measurement, you're shooting for the highest level of this pyramid, the whole way up to ratio, from nominal layer being the bottommost simplistic layer. Okay, I hope this is a little bit helpful. What we're going to do now is move right into some examples after I do a little recap, and we'll go from there. We'll call it a day.
Okay, so as you can see, we're talking about a pyramid type structure instead of having individual different categories here. So we're starting off with nominal, and then we're working our way up to ratio, testing each one. Once we hit our breaking point, or once we hit the top where we can't classify it anymore, that is going to be our highest level of measurement, and that is our level of measurement overall. All right, now we're going to talk about an example or two. Actually, we're going to talk about two examples in particular. We're going to go to our textbook and answer some questions regarding these individual layers. So let's go ahead, let's get started and continue on.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and check out the levels of measurement in two examples. This is directly from your textbook on page 11, questions 9 and 10. So if you want to go there, check it out. You can always access the textbook online through our classroom website, Korb Stats. But right now we're going to check out 9 and 10. So if you want to pause the video and take a stab at these questions and then check your answers as we go through, I'll give it a little explanation for the answers as we go. So pause the video now. All right, if you haven't paused it yet, you can try again. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance to check out some of these answers. Or figure out what the answers are for each of these and finding our levels of measurements. Now previously we talked about how ratio, interval, ordinal, and nominal can be arranged into a pyramid type structure instead of just individual pieces that they all tie together. So we're going to work our way from bottom to top, right? And then we're going with the highest level. So wherever we reach, that's going to be our highest level of measurement. Okay, so we're going to categorize these based on these four levels of measurement. So starting out with A, if I give you the length of time to complete an exam. All right, now it's not going to really be nominal per se. I guess I can place them into categories versus like short and long, right? Depends on how you assess it. I can also order who gets done first. But I can also look at the time frame in general with an interval and see that over a certain period of time, these are the people who got completed. But ultimately, this one is going to be a ratio. Okay, the first one is going to be a ratio because the length of the time to complete an exam, we can use other properties and we can find ratios between the values of the students who complete the exam. So that's going to be a ratio. Now, time of first class. Again, a little tricky. We're going to go the whole way up and call this an interval, and I'm just going to write an I. Interval deals with time. We can find the difference between two classes, but it wouldn't really make sense to talk about the time of a class of all your classes because they should be all the same time frame, right? So you're not going to really get too much of a difference, but that's going to be an interval because it's an interval of time. C, major field of study. Okay, now, can we categorize that? Absolutely. So when you go into college, if you decide to major in statistics, that's your major field of study. Okay, if you plan to major in philosophy, that's your major field of study. So those are categories. But can I order them? No, I can't. So this is going to be the nominal level of measurement. So as you can see, I work my way from bottom to top, and wherever I stop, that's the answer that I get. Okay, so D, course evaluation scale, poor, acceptable, good. So for this one, we have three categories, right? We have poor, acceptable, and good. Okay, but we can order these. Poor is the least, good is the best, or the highest. So we are going to call this ordinal. But we don't have actual numbers that go with it, so it can't be an interval or a ratio. So this is going to be ordinal. Score on last exam based on 100 points possible. So of course now it says 100 points possible, but nominal layer, if we called it A, B, C, or D, or F, you would have a nominal layer. But if we started with ordinal, you know that they're in order A, B, C, D, E, F. Well, not E, but you know what I'm talking about. Interval, we can talk about ranges of scores, but ultimately ratio because we can compare the various scores with one another in the class, and that is going to be the ratio layer, ratio level. The age of the student. Again, we can go through all of these again, but ultimately it's going to be a ratio because I can find not only the difference between the ages, but I can find like average age and so on and so forth. So as long as you can justify it for each step, whatever you can't justify, you go with the step before that. So the level at which you reach the highest is going to be our level of measurement. Now for these bottom ones, if you want to pause the video again, go for it. I'm just going to show you the answers here in momentarily. So pause the video if you want to try these. All right, so let's go through the answers real quick. So salesperson performance, below average, average, and above. Just like when we talked about poor, acceptable, and good for D up here, it's going to be the same thing. So this is also going to be ordinal because I can't put an actual number to it, but I can order these things based from best to worst, right? So price of company stock. Okay, now that one should be pretty obvious. Price, anytime we deal with money, we can ultimately find a ratio between the values. So price of company stock is going to be a ratio. Name of new products. Name, you can't really do anything with it. If I have a t-shirt and then I have shorts, I can't compare those two. They're two totally different things. They're two totally different categories. I can't order them either. So it's going to be the nominal layer. Temperature F in the CEO's private office. That is also going to be a ratio. Nope, I'm sorry. That's going to be an interval. In this case, an interval, because temperature is along a continuum, and since it's in one single office, we're not comparing a lot of different offices, average temperatures of offices. We're talking about one specific location. This is going to be an interval because we can measure differences between temperatures on any given time of day, right? E, gross income for each of the past 5 years of this company. So gross income for each of the past 5 years. Income, again, is going to be a ratio because it's money. We can take differences and we can find ratios between values. And color of product packaging. This one is ultimately going to be the nominal layer as well because color, you can't really order color per se on a scale. So it's just going to be nominal. All right. So hopefully this has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed the video. This has been Mr. Korb signing off. Make sure to like and subscribe and also follow me on Twitter with the hashtag KorbStatChat. All right. Have a good day, guys, and I will talk to you later.